Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Submitted for Your Approval, our weekly card review show for Collective, the community-created card game where you create the cards. I apologize in advance for my haircut. I am joined today, as always, by my faithful co-host, Grief. Say hi, Grief.
Hello.
And today, joining us by phone due to some technical difficulties, we are joined by Empty Folder.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're looking to kind of restructure what we're doing with guests. I've been bouncing back a couple ideas back and forth, and for this week, we're still gonna do a full episode, but we don't have a guest star for you guys today. So I want to jump straight into it with Pick Your Destroyer, which is a 7-drop neutral action from Nowhere in Particular by new player Spiny Nerd. So congrats. It says your opponent picks one of 4 random units that cost 7 or more, and you play it. So a lot of people thought this was interesting. Note, it does say 7 or more. So for 7, there's a chance you could get a draw that only has 8 drops, 9 drops. Some of the more dicey, scary end of Collective's roster of minions. Personally, I understand it's a new player who doesn't necessarily have access to all the resources. The art's a little bit of a game icons thing. It would be interesting to see if maybe some artists would be interested in coming up with something new for this and maybe doing a cosmetic update later on the line. What do you think of it, Grief?
I think it's kind of a cute idea for both brewers and Timmys alike, because big flashy card can actually be played in neutral, so you can ramp into it, and your opponent has to basically choose what they're getting out of it. Problem is, we have a pretty large pool, pretty damn terrible 7+ cost units, which you can actually get. On the other hand, if you can manage to cheat it out on turn 4 to 5, or maybe if you're really hard ramping it out with KM on like turn 3, because that's possible. Even the worst choice may not be that bad at that point.
Yeah.
So it's cute, and I don't really have anything against stock game icon art, because at the beginning of the game, we all used a damn game icon art, so why not? Props to the new person.
Yeah, and I do mean sincerely congratulations on that. I think it'll be interesting to see how this shapes up, especially in like single player, because the AI doesn't know how to pick very well. So I don't know what the AI would do on this for the single player modes, but I imagine it'll be probably fun. I imagine it might actually just pick highest, or whatever it deems like the biggest unit in terms of like threat level or something. What do you think of this card, Empty?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Grief. I think the flavor is really good, and that's probably the reason it got in. But I do think it's a bit underpowered, since we have so many bad late drops, and there's a lot of ones that are like bad specifically with this card, like Sonata or Wolf Amalgam. Like, you could end up paying 7 mana for a 1/1 if Wolf Amalgam shows up.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's always the case with these, like, Scout-esque, because this is basically Scout effect designs where it's can be a little high-rolly, but I see the payoff as being really fun in a visceral sense. And so I'll be interested to see what that does. And it's neutral, so it could slot. Honestly, I think Egoless can make good use out of this. Greg the Art Vendor is a 1-drop mine 0/2 goblin from Perotis with active pay 1 mana draw a card. So Perotis is supposed to be a parody realm, and they're working on this whole saga with Greg, which is an established character in the Collective realm. Sees other card Greg, great drawer. This one is supposed to actually be a parody on the bread vendor, for the garlic bread vendor from Talira, and so you'll see kind of a symmetrical design, and he's selling art. So they have a couple more designs for this little sub story they're doing. We've seen one of those they posted earlier, was actually later in the story, the impossible task. But it's interesting because we don't have a lot of like consistent like static graphics like this. The only other one I can think of is Amy off of Sleuth Sedan. So what did you want to talk about with this card, Grief?
I actually didn't really want to talk about it, but then again.
Yeah, we were pressed for a third pick.
The thing is with that card is, sure, it's continuous card draw, which is cute, and it's 1 card for 1 mana. That's also pretty nice, and it's just a 1 drop. That's a 0/2 without canned attack, so you cannot even benefit from canned attack synergy. So, fun enough, you probably use it to just trigger probably an attack, which is hilarious. And why? Because its card draw effect is A, delayed by a turn, and B, costs you 1 mana each turn, to the point where you have to consider if it's really worth it to play a unit that basically does nothing, while trying to well manage your resources per turn, especially on a unit that's so easy to remove, so easily removed. At that point, isn't it better just to play draw cards on their own? Because for 2 mana you can either for 2 to 3 mana you can actually play auto card draw effects, or which would be better if this wouldn't be a pay 1 mana effect.
See, I disagree with you. I do understand why it has pay 1 mana, both for the balance reasons and the synergy reasons, but I think stuff like consistent card draw is one of those skill testing must removes. So like having multiple threats out, one of which costs 1 mana. I mean, of course you could always just board wipe it, but this redirecting removal has some merit, definitely, because even though you are paying 1 mana, getting consistent draw in decks that you could run this off Affinity at 2.
Then it's especially worse.
Yeah, it is. It's not great, but it does give you another option for a consistent card draw and removal.
If you're comparing it to off Affinity card draw, you have stuff like Tots, which draws 2 cards, and Mills, and even you can benefit from that. You have in the same color identity Whims of Fate, which redraws your entire hand.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
This unit sure is a quote-unquote monster move, but A, attacks us you for 1 mana each turn. Yeah. And overall, it is basically a unit that neither attacks nor blocks, and is pretty much just, okay, good. I just by mistake killed it, or even can dual it off, because why shouldn't I?
And that's the problem with these like 0/2 type designs, is the like duelist just stomps them.
This thing dies to retro version.
Oh, and yeah, dies to retro version. That's the thing with a lot of these designs, is just every single all active cards just have to be judged on this ridiculous standard of, but there's so much other things we could be doing with them. What do you think of this, Empty?
Yeah, it's kind of a problem with like this stat line in particular and collective. That's just so bad because it's free to remove if like they have any duelist unit at all. Yeah, I think it could be. I do think people are undervaluing this card a little bit, because drawing a card every turn for 1 mana is quite good. But it's incredibly easy to deal with. I do think if it had the garlic bread vendor stat line and was on 03, it could actually see some play, because then it'd be a bit hard to deal with.
At that point,
I think the current version.
But then again, I've seen a lot of people, especially with recent update slots, move to push HP back down, and they don't want these stickier units, which is making the game like, or it's speeding things up in a way that I'm not sure is necessarily all that good. But I don't know really too much about the competitive meta. Sorry guys, we've been having more technical issues. I don't know quite what's going on. But anyways, I think we can pretty much safely move on from Craig. He's in an interesting spot, but his whole stat line is suffering. Now this one is interesting in that it's not very good, and he used a really good art from Rock Angel, which makes me kind of sad. Voxs Vivace is a 1-drop neutral 0/3 cultist from HPL with active destroy this to reduce the cost of your Vox by 1 wherever she is. Vox is an established card in the game. Just read it. I'm sad about this. I think you're sad about this, or at least don't agree that this card needed to get in its current iteration. So let's talk about it. Empty, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, so the reason I wanted to talk about this one is that it's like so close to being something that would be great for Voxs decks to have, that it just doesn't get there. Because like the major problem with Voxs is that with the game speed like has increased quite a bit, and Voxs is just so slow to get out. So having cards that can actually ramp out your Voxs and decrease their costs over the course of the game is great for the deck. The problem is this card isn't very good at doing that. Like paying 1 mana and using this to like just destroy itself in order to get a 1 discount on your Voxs just isn't worth it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe if this was a summon, or the other option is that it could also give your Voxs +1/+1, so that you could like wait with this in play until you get some Voxs +1/+1 triggers and then sack it to like draw a card off Voxs mana or something. Then it could actually see play. But I think the current version is just too weak.
Yeah. Or even just some means to maybe get more cost reduction out of it by having it stick around, or I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think, Grief?
It's probably one of the worst Vox support cards out there, which is pretty sad. Because, yeah, as Empty said, look at the artwork. He's presenting himself. He's such a good support card. You can make Vox cheaper now. After I died 3 times, she cost 10. Really? Why did this card has to exist? I mean, I've trash talked Greg a lot, but he has some saving merits in terms of, okay, give him 3 HP and then he sticks on the board so you can actually benefit from the card draw.
Yeah.
You're paying 3 mana on units that you nuke the next turn. Why?
Yeah. Like I don't get it, and I don't even run Vox decks. I just know that this sort of effect is just, it's so much setup for just so little reward. Even if it was like, okay, even if it was like pay 1 mana to reduce the cost by 2, that might be a little bit better, because at least you're not burning so much card for so little effect.
One idea was to make it a 2/2 or 3/3 and basically fitting the effect towards the body, like as a 2/2 reduce the cost by 2, or as a 3/3 reduce the cost by 3. At that point, it actually has some value as a body, which you can actually blow up if you want.
Well, because you gotta like ask yourself, like, would you run an action that just did the effect of this active? No, it's a waste of a card. Oh.
The thing is, you could just run Plunder Dog and use the coin to play Vox. It would be more effective than
Okay, now let's talk about the meat of the game, which is the new submission, starting with Frame for Posterity. Frame for Posterity is a 1-drop neutral action from Tutela with shuffle 2 copies of a unit in your hand into your deck. Shuffle 2 more for each turn you ended with unused mana. Bonk, for some reason, has a weird relationship with my designs. A lot of players don't like my designs, but it's funny that Bonk comes up with so many designs that are similar to things I like that just get me really excited, and this is one. This is just a really, really cool consistency tool that makes you want to hold on to mana in any affinity and potentially fill your entire deck up with really, really nasty stuff. Grief, what do you think of this?
It's a double-edged sword. Sure, you want to shuffle in multiple copies of a specific unit you want to use, but the pool of those units is probably extremely small, because in that case it's okay. To be like this is a better version of any card that did that effect so far, because it's A, neutral, and B, grows whenever you're actually not using anything. On the other hand, on the other hand, you have to have it in hand while you also have the card in hand that you actually want to multiply. So playing those cards sooner or later to just get immediate value of them does not happen, similar to stuff like Ether Blossom or what the card is called. On the other hand, this could actually lead to good or to decent new deck designs, like Greenman.deck or stuff like that,
Yeah.
where you just want to have multiple units that actually are more useful the more cards or copies you have from that in your deck.
Yeah, you can do a lot of just ridiculous stuff like this. Like, I would totally see using this to maybe get Sleuth Sedan into decks and getting a bunch of copies of Chester, because 2 Chesters will keep each other alive indefinitely, and then you can have an army of undead cats. But yeah, that's the thing, is there's a lot of like fun shenanigan stuff you can do with this.
Okay.
Or the other thing I thought about is actually like stuff like Vigma, where it kills itself and then you just get more bolts off of it. Or so there's some other stuff you could do that's potentially pretty cool. Empty, what do you think?
Yeah. I actually agree with you that there's like a lot of weird corner case sort of cards that this will be good with. Vigma is actually a pretty good example.
Yeah.
Actually, I wonder how that works if you have like 10 Vigmas, if they keep dying and keep coming back, if you can get through all 10.
They will die. They will die indefinitely. Like the first one will trigger, put itself into play. Its effect happens. Next one will trigger, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So you could potentially like stack this up and get like 18 damage or whatever on units.
And,
Yeah.
Or you, was Hunter still effective on mill?
Yeah. That was actually another thing that I was thinking about, is you could get a ton of Lost Huntsmen.
Yeah. Oh, yikes. Another one that's probably not as cool but could potentially be cool is using this on the Grimmer Brothers. And then you could use that to do some like deck filtering shenanigans, getting multiple copies of the Grimmer Brothers.
If you're actually copying a Grimmer Brother, you will shuffle all copies of them in your hand.
Yeah, and then when you draw one back, you'll draw them all back.
Which
You
will
also have to be careful.
Which will overdraw you, which will lead to them entering the graveyard.
Well, yeah, but then maybe you can do something off of that. There's probably ways to do it. If you're the kind of blue deck that finds a way to get rid of a lot of cards in your hand, maybe you can find a way to do it. Or if you're in KM, I don't know. It's high jank potential, which I see from a lot of bonk designs, and I'm all here for it.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that's worth mentioning is it is a pretty decent anti-mill tech.
Oh, and just good point. And just regular old anti-mill tech. The Stone Golem is a 3-drop neutral 4/3 golem from nowhere in particular by Azdras, who is back, guys. I missed him. And it has Endure 1. When this takes damage, it preemptively heals 1 of that damage. This interested me a lot because we got a version of MTG's Absorb, which appeared in like all of 1 card. It started with Ickling last week, and now this is a new design for it that's a little tankier and kind of trying to see what else we can do with this new potential hook word. Since I know Grief has a thing about adding in new name mechanics, let's have Grief talk about this first.
Folks, stop fucking naming your keywords. The effect works without that, and you actually have some text space left. On the other hand, whenever you try to actually make those keyword wordings, they will take A, extra space, and B, will lead to you even probably putting those cards on a higher rarity than they actually need to. And Endure, well, this is a perfect example. It doesn't need Endure 1. You can just use the heal plus the heal 1, heal 3, heal 5, whatever, which is also a case why do we only use heal 1 and not heal 2 or stuff like that.
Yeah.
That would be probably more interesting instead of having a neutral Ickling.
Yeah, and that's the thing is we have these whole things where like now because of the space that it has to take up, and this is kind of either way, it's basically just a big French vanilla. It does have an fairly interesting stat line for Endure. Endure is more of a tanky type thing. but this has more of a little bit of an aggro forward stat line. But this is actually this is fairly strong, I think. I don't know if I'm just not thinking of it right or overestimating it. What do you think, Empty?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty decent for like a vanilla stat line. Endure is actually pretty good on like more aggressive units because it stops your opponent from multi-blocking to kill them very effectively. Because like if you chump this with 4 tokens that are just 1/1s, it'll kill all of them and not even take any damage. I do agree with what Grief said though. This shouldn't be an uncommon, but it has to be because of that extra endure text in there.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a problem with getting the keyword in, is that every card is going to have to be at least an uncommon, even ones that are basically French vanilla like this.
Yeah, and that's something to be said maybe partially about what the policy is in general, but I do agree that like we have to waste a lot of words to get not a lot of value out of it. And so is this actually, how's this affecting it in the votes? It's not doing too hot. So I mean, know.
Cosmetic updates are free, so.
Yeah, that's true.
I am glad to see you back, Asdrez, but just kind of know that we had some thoughts about this design that are really just a consequence of kind of how the system is. The Void Wisp, this was interesting. I wanted to talk about this. Is a 3-drop Spirit 1/2 Spectre from Degenesis with Deadly and Summon, increase the attack of all fairies by 1. And I thought this was really, really funny because like this is a bunch of different things that you could just fix like the proper nouns and maybe this would be a design. So Spectre and Degenesis and Wisp and fairies are all completely different things from completely different realms. Wisps tend to be from Chromosome. Spectres, I don't think they pop up into Genesis a whole lot. Fairies don't pop up into Genesis and have nothing to do with the fact that this is a Spectre. And this is clearly a Wisp in the picture, and then the name, but not in the tribe line. So I was just like 8 levels of confused with this. Empty. Like, what? Well,
I can't really say exactly what the designer was like thinking with this card. Fairies do show up in Genesis though, so I think they got that part right.
Okay, fairies do show up. Okay.
Same as Spectres and Wisp. This is basically just to shorten what Genesis is. It's a fever dream made manifest, with many aspects to fairy tales, horror, and so on and so forth. Technically, this is on point, flavor-wise. Maybe the artwork should change.
Yeah.
But overall, this actually makes sense.
Well, it's just weird because we have a Wisp tribe, and the Wisp tribe does something that's incongruous.
We don't have a Wisp tribe, we have Wisp names.
No, I think the
Wisps.
They are Wisps.
They are Wisps? I thought they were Spectres.
No, they're Wisps.
No, they're Wisps.
Oh, okay.
And so it just, I don't know, I do agree, but like also seeing a tribal design on an off-tribe card is always going to be a little bit weird. And so I can see where I understand a little bit of this, but I can understand where a lot of voters would look at this card and get super confused and just think that this was kind of mishmash designed. What do you think of the design, Grief?
I probably have to take a look at the blocks because this is probably a fairly new player looking at the name and how the card is worded. If the card actually has an property that's outside of the game, it actually tracks tribes, this would be pretty hilarious because it would put a Bullock's passive or his level 3 reward as a global property for your own fairies wherever they are, whenever they are created, which one of the dinosaurs actually does for cards that you choose that you target with him. So in that regard, this would be actually a pretty interesting fit for fairies. Problem is though, this card is in spirit, which is for the Genesis not really an issue, but all the fairies we actually have,
Or in mine
besides I
and
think
strength.
one, are in mine and strength, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what I meant about it being kind of a little bit all over the place. A 3-drop 1/2 deadly is kind of neat. Comparable to say like it compares almost nicely to Sally, but then this effect is in a deck that doesn't need that other effect. I wouldn't run this big off affinity thing in fairies even for the deadly, because it's just not a good stat line. So yeah, I think that the proper nouns here don't matter to some players, but definitely do matter to some parts of the voters, and that's probably what's affecting it a little bit. I do want to take a minute and do a shout out, as I always do, to Pretty Art, because this is what this is. I like the little galaxy design and the other thing, and even the little like this subtle like X thingy going through it. It's a very, very neat picture, but the package is just confusing me and probably confused a lot of other people reading the card. And another new player design. The Harbinger's Memory is a 3-drop spirit 0/4 place from nowhere in particular. With can't attack and units you control gain Entomb. This deals 1 damage to you. You gain 1 XP. So I don't know what's up with the whole like flavor package, but I actually really like the card. It strikes me as being potentially interesting in either a deck with a lot of life bonders or any deck that really needs XP. I don't know how balanced it is, but it's definitely interesting. What do you think, Grief?
I love the card.
Yeah.
To be honest, this is perfect for self-sacrifice decks, especially since it's balanced with the case that it's in spirit. On the other hand, you can actually utilize a good tool of a good engine with a spirit, where you have stuff like Brood or more, where you can trigger them at the end of the turn or before combat, put them into play, either kill themselves or hit something to die afterwards. So you can actually have a good ramp, XP ramp effect on the board. Issue is the fact that this could be actually be a little bit too powerful, and this could be the case where we could argue that this should be A, 3 cost, and B, have 3 HP.
Yeah. I mean, this opens up a possibility of a really fun Cool Rush deck, and I'm cool for Cool Rush. What do you think, MT?
Yeah, I quite like this card as well. I always kind of like having cards that are like I think this would be a bit better in strength, but having it be balanced so that you can play it in spirit and then maybe run it off affinity and strength where you have more synergies is really interesting. And I like that sort of design. The flavor I'm a little bit iffy on, but yeah I think it's a cool design.
Yeah, it's legit cool.
The Cool Rush deck where with like high risk, high reward, because you are going to be taking a lot of damage from this.
Yeah. But I mean, you could slap in a couple, like maybe a copy of Sweet Ascent or some other stuff, because Sweet Ascent can die multiple times and give you 2 HP, give you an HP back instead of take 1 away.
Loaded Champler would work with it, which would say that you actually gain 1 XP and gain 2 HP.
Mm.
Yeah, it is interesting that the units that die deal the damage. There's some weird stuff you can do with that.
Yeah. Or just like, and that makes me interested in seeing it maybe also in a Marie Plants kind of situation with like Pomegranate and some other stuff that is gaining you a whole bunch of life anyway. Who cares if I take damage? Just to fuel this Harbinger's Memory thing. But yeah. Definitely an interesting design. Definitely one of the standout, like, I wish I understood what was going on more in the picture type things. Oop. Reddit link. Okay, Steel Sentry is a 2-drop neutral 1/4 robot from Mort Stahl, Realm of the Dead Things. Can't attack, active, banish a card from your graveyard, deal 2 damage for your opponent. I know Korn did comment that this was supposed to be aimed in more of a Marie type setting, giving Marie a way to filter through the grave and use the grave as a resource in another way. All that said, Grief, why did you pick it?
This card is almost perfect. Should probably hit enemies instead of just the opponent.
Yeah. That cuts down. It adds another two-step to the thing, which I can see complicating things, unless you do that as a targeting, but it's kind of worded the other way.
But the thing is, when you actually hit enemies, you can have more board control, which means this card would probably need to have 3 HP to be more easily removed. Can't attack is pretty nifty because it can actually synergize with play support or can't attack support, which is cute. Overall, I don't really have anything to say about the card. I like both directions, either just hit face, but it's rather slow in that regard, or hit enemies where you can actually have more board control, but probably weaker body.
Yeah, this also does give means for someone like maybe Ashgurdy to use it since it's in neutral, and for Ashgurdy to get another chip in.
One attack matters would actually benefit from that. Yeah.
Yeah, because just stuff die. Or, oh boy, with star chips. Take your star chip, play your star chip, do something with it, then burn it on the other end to steal Sentry. You get a lot of value out of that. I really like this for Ashgurdy, actually. Empty, what do you think?
Yeah, so the problem with like using this in Marie is that the active dealing damage to just your opponent. Marie doesn't really do that so good, so you're not getting that much value out of it. I actually think this would fit much better in an Ash deck because you don't really need that much fuel to like get this thing going. It's kind of just going to naturally happen, and then like with star chips, especially like you said, like if you pay 1 Magic Dave, that's 3 cards in your graveyard that this can chew through. That's already 6 damage. And like this has a very survivable body, and like it's dealing direct damage, so that's like a really good way to proc your passive early on.
Yeah, and I definitely do like the flavor package on this one. I think it's really coherent, and the actual composition of the art is really, really cool. It's probably some of the best stuff I've seen Korn do. And just a little hint of the red light, man. I don't know. I've been geeking out. I always geek out about art, but today I'm just really feeling it. Okie dokie then. The Desert Sunset is a 1-drop mind action from Mirage with friendly units with 1 or less attack, gain unblockable, and this always has 1 attack this turn. So this is designed to synergize oddly with your 1 attack matters stuff and your places, actually, because a lot of can't attack stuff will have that just, well, no, I guess it doesn't really synergize with places because they can't attack. But with the problem I see with this is I have two particular issues where it's like maybe 3. So you have your Blade Weaver, you have your the Fire Pyromancer in Dunewalkers, and then I guess maybe in the later end of things you also have Octopus, where giving things with 1 attack unblockable and just letting them have that free attack is, I think, more powerful than 1. I think this should be higher cost. In the deck that's actually running it and running these synergies, I think this is too good. What do you think, Grief?
I think it's actually perfectly fine. What I'm actually missing on that card is fast, was deck space, which could probably be handled with your unit's attack, and you could get an extra line, but whatever. But yeah, it actually covers 2 major weaknesses of 1 attack matters units. A, the unblockable, which is already actually in Legacy, and that's on Tunneler Worm. And B, this always has 1 attack, because what happens when actually your opponent plays cards that reduce the attack of your units? Then they're utterly useless.
Yeah.
regardless of when they actually attack, because they actually have to deal damage most of the time to trigger. And 0 below attack units cannot do damage even if they connect with their attacks. This is a perfectly fine card for that. Also, it only is until the end of turn.
If you knew your opponent was running a King of Tall Tales, this is a funny way to keep it at bay. No, I guess you give it unblockable. But you give it...
I think if you know when your opponent has King of Tall Tales, you have probably other problems than just that.
Yeah.
MG, what do you think of it?
I don't know. I think the balance is pretty close, but this is the type of card where I just don't want to play against this.
Yeah.
Like, the moment your opponent has any board, they can just drop this and go all in and get really close to killing you. And that's already kind of a problem with Dunewalkers, is that, like, if they get any board at all, they can kill you really fast. The problem is all their units are so weak that just killing everything they play and preventing them from ever doing anything is really easy. So,
yeah, this is kind of like throwing away their weaknesses, which is good in the ways that Grief said and bad in ways that you and I have said.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about archetypal finishers. This is basically it.
Yeah. I just don't know if we should really have an archetype that has its finisher as a 1-drop card. That's...
I mean, most of their setups are still 5-drops and 4-drops.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about Pick Your Destroyer. This is Pick Your Annoyer. And it is a 0-drop neutral action from nowhere in particular. With your opponent picks one of 4 random units that cost 1, you play it. So what do you think of this card, Grief?
While Pick Your Destroyer is cute and you could probably brew around with it, this, on the other hand, is pretty damn powerful. Because you're getting a 1-drop unit for 0 mana, which means that you can actually get it on turn 1, have 2 1-drops on board, which even allows Helden to have probably a secured turn 2 proc of his ability. In addition to that, this also allows you to get good sacrifice tools into play, because you can play this with Bloodletter together, and regardless of what you're getting, you can actually sack that off. And for the to just add towards the levels of why this card is so good, you play the card so summon abilities trigger, and we have a far more useful range of 1-drops that you can actually grab with that card than 7+ units by Pick Your Destroyer.
So you think one is that Destroyer is maybe playable, and this one's more competitive?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Empty?
I think it's all right. You really need like some way to guarantee that that unit is going to be useful.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, let's say you're playing Helden and you're playing like an aggressive deck. You can, if you're trying to use this to like guarantee getting the turn 2 proc, if a can't attack shows up, like let's say there's that 1-drop place, or the egg, or a chicken, and your opponent picks that, then you don't.
You cannot get chicken because you can. It has to cost 1 mana.
1.
Oh, is there a chicken that costs 1? I think there is.
So yeah, there's problems with maybe getting a can attack unit in Helden, but hopefully the deck that would run this in Helden also has like self-sack tools and something else that can make good use out of this.
Well, I think like the main 2 decks that are going to want to run this is decks that have some sort of way to sack and always make use of the 1-drop, no matter what it is, because it is still free.
Yeah.
And the other deck I could see it in potentially is a version of action spam, where you really want to like spam through a whole bunch of actions.
Just a 0 cost
in order to get like mana mites and stuff. Does this count as that?
Yeah, and I do gotta say, like with some of the new stuff, like the Ragi Resurgence got in, This is, oh, this could be a good card for me, but if not later, I can pitch it to reanimate something.
Do they trigger feed effects?
I don't think so.
If not, I think that's a bug, but I think that was something that came up a while ago. I don't know if it got fixed or not.
It's the weird thing with like force play, because usually it doesn't do any triggers.
Yeah. Okay, the Scrap Shocker is a 2-drop mine 1/2 robot from Mort Stahl, Realm of the Dead Things. With flying, and when this attacks, exhaust an enemy unit. I didn't look at this design very closely, but when Grief, I think it was on your picks, right, Grief?
Yep.
Yeah, I was like, I kind of fell in love with this. This is the kind of stuff I liked seeing in Magic, where it was like a combination of evasion and potential like oppression, and man, this is fun. Is this too powerful? Maybe, because this effect, just knocking a blocker out of the race, is potentially scary. What do you think, Grief?
No, let Empty talk before.
Okay, let's let Empty talk first.
Okay. Yeah, so I think like baseline, this isn't too powerful. The only issue with this is that it slots right into Mind Flyers and is amazing there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with Sky Totem out, any flyer looks overpowered. But I really like the design here because it like forcing your opponent to attack with their units. Because like your opponent's biggest thing, you can just exhaust it, and now they can't block with it anymore. So they like have to attack with it to make use of it, but then you're going to exhaust their next biggest thing. So it's like your opponent has to decide like what they're going to let you exhaust, which is really interesting.
And that does great. Yeah. Oh,
it makes this super evasive because decks don't run that many flyers, and even if they have one, you can just exhaust it and still get through.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say, is like if they have one flyer, one leap designed to combat this kind of thing, now they don't. And this could take a really annoying stuff like, I don't know if Flatfall Frog still shows up anymore in the meta, but like, nope. Shut it down.
It's a dot card, so it doesn't show up.
Yeah. But it won't show up anymore in the future. Okay, so we have the tax collection. Okay, so this is another part of that whole Greg story thing I told you that JTAD's been working on with some other people. Tax collection is a 2-drop strength action from Perotis with your opponent loses 2 mana. Huh? Empty, you pick this?
Yeah.
What's the deal with this card?
I don't know. I was hoping you guys could help me understand it.
I don't get it.
Okay. This is a Death and Taxes / Stacks effect. Basically saying both players lose 2 mana for this turn, which is cute, but let's be honest, I don't want to pay 2 mana for that effect. If I'm actually playing this kind of effect, I want to play it for 0, so I can actually benefit from other triggers. So the card says, okay, good, both players lose 2 mana. I can deal with that for 0 mana, so I can actually do something like spell chaining or stuff like that, and can get through what's there. And having a 0 mana effect as well helps you that you can actually play the effect sooner than turn 2. Next thing, I want to play this for 1 mana to actually have a painful effect for my opponent. I'm spending 1 mana, so I reduce your mana by 2 for this turn, because it's basically Teeth of Hopes as an action. That's okay. But I've seen people really disliking the effect at 1 mana. At 2, it's not really good.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, if this was a 0 cost with both players lose 2 mana, at that point, first of all, better flavor in my opinion. Second of all, I can see so much like potential fun cheese stuff like in the legacy pool that would make like Flash Flamingo or something just finding a way.
It would actually trigger dwarves.
Yeah, or just anything like that. Slowing down the game could be a really, really neat effect, but like, I want to see a reason to do it. This card just isn't very versatile.
Technically, this card should say both players lose 2 max mana.
Now, 2 max mana, that would be a different kind of, I don't want to vote for this card, because then it's just like, no.
No, at this point you're paying 2 max mana, or you're paying 2 mana to lose 2 max mana, and your opponent loses 2 max mana.
So your opponent gets a temporary mana surge because they'll have the 2 available.
Exactly, they still have the 2 mana open.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yes, but dwarves exist, and that's kind of a problem.
That's why I'm actually saying that, because at that point it would actually have some uses.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no, but those uses, I don't think a lot of people would want to play against them.
Yeah.
I see.
It's already a problem where, like, you can play the like that rock slide card. You can spam that, and then when you have no mana, you can pay the dwarf that resets you to 3 while your opponent has nothing.
Yeah.
And
Which I personally like, because I like stacks. I like taking away resources and the fun of other players, because that's just my kind of fun.
But yeah, I see why people don't like this. It doesn't really do a lot, and then it could be so much more versatile. I mean, it's a simple card that is also simple in the sense of it has like no uses.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of directions you could take the design. I think the simplest thing is to just make it 1 mana. It would be fine.
Yeah.
Give us Teeth of Hope as an action.
Okay, welcome folks to the new Mort Stahl, which is a 2-drop strength 0/4 place from Mort Stahl, Realm of the Dead Things, but this is the new one. Can attack, ward, and at end of turn this gains +2 HP. I think, I imagine, and this is just my imagination, Empty is not going to be very, very fond of this design. Because not only is this scaling, it scales in HP, which is potentially very, very bad. Also, like, come on, can somebody show Dat some love? Like, Dat needs something that could do this kind of thing, right? Maybe make it neutral.
I mean, he can play it off affinity. That's not really a problem. It's a scaling 3-drop at that point.
Yeah, I don't know. Empty, why'd you pick this?
This is another card that I don't completely understand what it's really for. Yeah. So it just sort of sits there and gains HP. The problem is, what can you actually like do with this?
Yeah.
And in strength, I think there's very little. Yes, you can run it off affinity in dot. I guess place synergy is a thing.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think I found
will finally do something.
Sunday Jank Brewing with Grief. Welcome to Collective Card Game Wonderland, where, and it pains me to say that I actually use this card in that case, you play Mass of Many Men on this card, Guardian of the Abyss, and a Duelist. Guardian of the Abyss has the ability that says whenever it takes damage, it deals the same amount of damage to both players. Or you can actually, instead of a Duelist, you have to put 3 units on the Mass of Many Men or indefinite.
Yeah.
Maximum of 3. So you can actually play that in KM and give it Duelist, which is also a case. But then you actually don't have to use a Duelist unit, but can actually Mass of Many Men this, Guardian of the Abyss, and what's it called? Blood Priest, which then deals double damage to your opponent, which at that point you've played a 2-drop, a 3-drop, and a 4-drop, and then Mass of Many Man them.
Yes!
And you gave them Duelist because of KM.
And Ward.
Oh yeah, it also has Ward. And Innate Regen. or partially innate regen. That's a pretty janky combo that you actually have to deal with, but at that point it's an 8.
Yeah.
An 8/12 duelist ward that gains 2 HP at the end of turn and deals double damage to your opponent whenever it duels, which is okay.
I mean, this is like probably the most effective wall I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
2 mana 04 gains HP and it has ward.
Yeah.
it's a cute card. I like it because it's just there and maybe someone will find a use for it.
Yeah. But it's not doing too well on the thing, so we'll see about maybe a resub later on. Or, you know, Reddit votes are crazy. One in the Chamber is a 5-drop strength action from nowhere in particular. Simply stated, innate and destroy a unit. And it's by Asdres. This is actually an old design he resubbed. I think you and I had the same problem with this design, Empty. Would you like to say what that is first?
Well, I don't know if we have the same problem, but my problem with this is that, yes, like innate gives it consistency, but it's consistently bad.
Yeah,
because
that
Demon
was
Heart
my
is a bad
issue with
card, and you don't want Demon Heart in your opening hand. Like there's probably one matchup which is like Equipment Heldem where I can think, okay, maybe I'd want Demon Heart, but even in that matchup, I'm not sure if I'd want it in my opening hand.
Yeah, I think we need, and I have the same issue with it. It guarantees that you have a card in your hand that you don't want in your hand most of the time. And the thing is, it was supposed to be like this matchup specific thing when really the only thing you can see in queue is, okay, here's their hero. Hope you know what deck they're running. And there are a lot of cases where probably you can, but there are also a lot of cases where it's like, I don't know what's going on. And so I think we need to like push our destroy units a little further down if this stuff is going to be useful. Like innate's almost a drawback because it can screw with your mulligans and give you a card that's guaranteed dead till turn 5, unless you're promo, I guess. What do you think, Grief?
This is basically the problem between tournament play and ladder play.
Mm-hmm.
Because in single player, this is also okay. Single player or drafting, this is always okay. Because it's innate removal, especially for matchups or something like Sentinels runs, where not Sentinel runs, but Colosseum runs, where you just want to have that single removal for that specific reward unit that will drop on that specific turn, or basically if they quote unquote drop an boss monster on the board that you actually want to remove. For that kind of application, the card as is fine. Here comes the kicker. Ladder, it's completely terrible and should cost 4 mana to actually be useful at that point.
Yeah.
Then at that point it will be also run nearly everywhere that is red, which is also bad. Technically, this card only exists in a setting where you have a tournament, because it's a sideboard card.
Yeah.
That at that point, sure, you're sacrificing your first draw, but your opponent has to deal with the fact that you now have a 5-cost removal in hand, always ready. And depending on the deck, you can even ramp that out sooner to hit that specific unit on time.
So there was this classic problem in Magic the Gathering that Mark Rosewater talks about, where the card Counterspell wants really, really badly to cost 2.5 mana. And this is kind of that problem, where this card wants really, really badly to cost 4.5 mana. And you just can't do it. It's garbage. It's garbage in the mode that most people actually play. Or the modes that most people actually play. And in the other modes, they either got removed in the case of tournaments or don't exist yet in the case of the new Sentinels. Maybe in the current Sentinels, this is still pretty good. This is still pretty good in the current Sentinels. But, like, I would maybe want to see this get resubbed, maybe with some kind of other tweak when the new Sentinels comes out, because then maybe people could put this in a better context. But as is, it's just, I don't know. It's an innate version of a card that I wouldn't want to like put in my deck. The Fishy Swashbuckler is a 1-drop mind 1/2 fish pirate from Osagarth. It's got 1 ammo, and on attack, deal damage equal to ammo to opponent. So a lot of this comes back with the weird ammo stuff of like ammo having this like disparate flavor almost, where it's like, why does he hold on to his ammo, and why does just having ammo make him stronger? But you got to do something with these ammo designs, and a lot of them aren't doing so great. How's this one doing? 6. It's actually doing better than most of them. MG, what did you want to say about this card?
Yeah, so at 6, this might actually get in because so far we've had a really slow week.
Yeah.
I do think like the flavor on these ammo cards and like what they're doing has been like very inconsistent. Because like as you said, this one he's holding on to his ammo, whereas a lot of like the other ammo cards are spending it. And then like there was the ammo finisher we had the other week that was about spending it, but this guy doesn't spend it. It's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
The other problem is that because this is a common, there's not very much you can do with like there's very little leeway you can do with this design because it's using up every bit of text space that it has.
And the part that bugs me is in currently, and this is just Mystic like doing these designs out of order, is currently this is a vanilla 2/2 pretty much. I mean, it deals 1 to the opponent and then 1 to face. But it's,
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
it does make sense to do them in this order because like you can't really do the synergy cards before these are in because then they don't do anything.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I suppose. And isn't this like a power creep of the Dunewalker Rogue? No, I guess it has to attack
Rogue
to
is
do it.
active.
Yeah, I guess this has to attack to do it. So this is more of a risky version of the Dunewalker Rogue. Now in existing stuff, could I see maybe running this in Dunewalker? Actually, yeah, maybe I could see running this in Dunewalkers. Because it gives that ash chip damage, and then it actually is an attacker on top of that, and I can ward it with my other stuff.
Yeah, I mean it is 2 ash procs. Like if you have an agile turn 2, you could potentially get the ash proc turn 2, which is quite strong.
Okay, I'm seeing it now. Grief, what do you think about it?
I like ammo batteries. In that case, where you can actually stack ammo on cards. But we don't have cards that stack ammo on cards.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Mystic, please do me a favor and probably look at Pirates from Eridan ETCG. They had 3 different styles: Fire and Electromagic, Wizards, Equipment Pirates, and Powder Pirates. Powder is basically ammo, but way more useful and way more versatile, where you actually stack powder on your opponent's creatures on your own, either blow them up, reload specific attacks, or whatever. That would actually be a pretty nifty way to do it. Like that. Sure, ammo exists.
No.
But whatever. What my personal gripe with that card is technically, because it's useful, it's a 1-drop 1/2 with a burns face when it attacks, which is completely fine. On attack, the wording isn't this when this attacks. I don't really have anything against the wording, but it pretty much hints into the direction this was probably an uncommon with when this attacks.
Yeah.
Are we now changing when this attacks to on attack? I don't have really a problem with that. More text crunch solutions, but I like my consistency.
Yeah, and I understand. I think here the definitely the definition is clear, but it goofs up with existing stuff, and this is just text crunch hitting us in new and innovative ways again. It's a gift that keeps on giving. So yeah, I don't know. It has an interesting place maybe in Dunewalkers, but These ammo designs are still weirding me out. This is probably one of the best ones of the lot. I will give that to you. And I'm glad to see this. I want to see all of these cool arts that Dia.
No.
Yeah. I want to see all these cool arts that Dia came up with eventually get some use. So I'm gonna stop the share. So that was a fun week. And I had a lot of fun. What about you guys? Have a lot of fun?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Grief.
I should talk a lot.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Grief. Thank you, Empty. It was a lot of fun. We'll see what we're doing with the guests about having them back on next week. And I'll let you guys know. Like, comment, and subscribe. Remind me why I'm doing this stuff. Bye.